Hey everyone, this is Jimmy with Jim's Review Room. Nikon released one of their most insane built-in zooming cameras for the average consumer. The Coolpix P90 main selling feature is the ability to zoom in 83 times. It makes it equivalent to a 24 to 2000 millimeter telephoto lens, and it's only priced at $599 as of this video. So what I'll do is we'll take a look at the exterior and also some photos I've taken around town as well, and I'll give you my insight along the way. So let's get started here. Without further ado, I'm here to help you make a purchase decision. Welcome everyone to Jim's Review Room. Now this review is for the average consumer, looking for a good camera to take on their family trips or vacations. So I won't be going too deep into the jargon, but letting the viewers see how this works and in the end how the photos should look as well. But starting with the physical build, it weighs in at about 2 pounds, which when held, it does have some weight to it. But comparing to the Canon T5i or a Nikon D3100, this Coolpix is just slightly heavier due to the huge lens inside. It's really not too bad. But grabbing this has been great though, as it does offer a very deep and contoured grip, not to mention very sticky contact surfaces. Now on top, you have of course your trigger button with zooming in and out sliding either way. Now slightly below that is your mode selection like auto, aperture, and shutter priority. Now to the right is your scroll wheel for going through your menu options and used to adjust your settings. Now going to the back of the camera, you have your LCD display to turn on and off, display options, and the video record button. Now below that are your very standard features that you basically see on most cameras today. Now one thing I wanted to talk about is the electronic viewfinder. When the camera is on and you have your LCD swiveled out and facing you, now if it's too bright outside or if you want to see where you're aiming at a little bit better, you look into the viewfinder and it turns the external LCD off automatically and basically the viewfinder on. But looking through the electronic viewfinder, it's not optical. The real-time image in the viewfinder is lacking because it's digitally processed. Now some details of the image is lost and the colors are a bit washed out. It's not a deal breaker, but it felt somewhat of a downgrade going from looking at the LCD and then into the viewfinder itself. But moving on here, indeed the LCD can swivel out, perfect for aligning the camera for a group photo or getting in frame basically and having the camera timer essentially go off. Now I know with my other cameras I use this feature a lot actually. The LCD is not a touchscreen and it does offer a plastic-like feel that flexes ever so slightly. Nonetheless, the screen still performs as it should and serves its purpose. Now going to the right side here, you have not a mini, but a micro HDMI port for connecting this to your TV. And above that is a micro USB port for exchanging data and files, but even better, it's also used for charging your camera's battery. No special proprietary cords or charging docks needed. But still on the right side here is a NFC sensor. It's abbreviated for Near Field Communication. Now if you have a smartphone with NFC capabilities, you basically just download the app and then afterwards you just tap on the side of the camera and this will create a wireless link in between the two devices. Basically it creates the ability for you to beam your selected photos from the camera and send it directly to your smartphone. And it's ideal for those who want to basically upload their photos to Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, etc. And it's ideal for those who basically don't have a good camera on their smartphone themselves. But the connection is fast since it's over Wi-Fi and I didn't encounter any issues with syncing data as long as both devices are in the same house obviously or in the same area and on the same network. Now looking at the very bottom, very underrated here but very important is a tripod mount, and then to the right holds your battery and full-size SD card slot. But now talking about the lens here, on the line of Coolpix cameras, there is not a manual or focus ring on the barrel of the lens. To zoom in, there's a lever on the side though, or you can use the one near the trigger button as mentioned earlier. And although again there's no focus ring, you still do have manual focus though, but it's basically inside the menu options. You have to toggle through the settings. Now you have to be in another mode besides auto, and then when you press down on the directional button, you select MF instead of AF, basically for manual focus and autofocus respectively. And there you can spin the dial and basically change the depth of where you want to focus. But I'll admit this method is quite cumbersome and it's there if you need it, but I think this camera is really geared towards the average consumer who won't be using manual focus for these kind of shots. And if you are looking for this specific control, another DSLR would be a little bit more ideal for you. But overall, the Coolpix P900 feels well put together and durable, despite some areas where you can tell Nikon went with a lower cost material. But more importantly here, how are the photos? Now we'll start with the main selling feature here, the ability to basically zoom in. Here's an overall picture looking at a construction site. There's two guys here that I'll eventually zoom up on, a guy in a yellow construction vest and the other is on the roof in a orange vest. Now here's the first photo. And it's crazy how close this thing gets. And keep in mind, this is all optical, not digital zoom, which would have degraded the picture a bit here. Now here's a second photo, and this time onto the construction worker on the roof. Now this is pretty impressive again for a $600 camera. Now keep in mind, if you're thinking of buying this, be sure to have a tripod. Now if you're zoomed in this close and then holding it with just your bare hands, it's ultra sensitive and the image will basically shake everywhere. You'll need something to keep this camera stable. And now just for giggles here, here's a digitally zoomed image, which I never liked on any camera anyways, but you can see it's even closer, yes, but it does introduce some distortion to the image. And now here, one last shot of zooming in an overall street view, and I'll be zooming right into that traffic light in the center. Now the image for a $600 camera is good in my opinion, but the ability to zoom in like this is pretty impressive. You can see the texture of the cable, a nice soft sheen to the rubber jacket as well. But let's now look at regular everyday photos. Now keep in mind, my videos are edited, but the photos on screen I'm showing has been not edited at all. Now this is what it looks like straight from the Coolpix 900 itself. Very clean images, a little moire on the vertical rails though, but it's to be expected on smaller sensor cameras like this one. Now I had taken a picture of this stop sign here as well to see how accurate it is in regards to color reproduction, and it's pretty much spot on. The stop sign indeed is faded a bit in person, and the camera didn't overcompensate or undersaturate the image. It looks accurate from the sample here. But now in regards to low light performance, overall, if you're not zooming so much on the image, it looks fine, but if you do look at the finer details, I personally did notice just slightly more noise in the dark areas compared to my crop sensor Nikon D5100. Now the Coolpix does have a smaller sensor, and I expected it to underperform a bit in low light, but overall I believe this image is still usable if you're the average consumer. And last is a macro test, basically seeing how close this thing can get to a subject, and this thing does ridiculously well. Now it is springtime and this bumblebee here on the ground was right there in front of me, and it is dusted in pollen here and aiming right at his head. It looks crazy in detail, a bit freaky, but its illustration on macros or just plain close-up shots is quite impressive. So overall with photo quality, contrary to what the LCD screen or viewfinder shows, once you bring home the photos and put them on your computer, they come out really nice, and for the most part performed as good as my more expensive Nikon D5100. Now the only downfalls are its limited and not as good low light performance and the low megapixel count. But for the price and the smaller sensor built into the camera, it is, you can say, to be expected. It's not really a downfall, but it's reasonable for its price. Now colors, more importantly, do come out accurate, and granted most of my photos were shot over several days and each day was just cloudy basically, the pictures still came out pretty well. And one thing I haven't mentioned yet is the image stabilization. Now for non-super zoomed in photos, if you do have somewhat shaky hands, the image stabilization helps tremendously in keeping the image where you want it to basically snap your photo. But at the end of the day, you are paying a bit more in the Coolpix line for that zooming feature, and as you've seen in the photos and the samples, you can see it does very well. It's the main selling feature of the P900. So I hope this review helped you in some way. If you like my work, add me onto your social media right now on either Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram using my name here, Jim's Review Room. So that's it for this video. Feel free to take a look at my other work here, and I'll see you guys on the next one. You guys take care. Bye.